Hello everyone, this is Pavitra. Welcome to ISKA revision classes. Today we'll be dealing with chapter number 6, which is auditing of information system. This chapter contains the concepts from chapter number 3 and chapter number 7, which will be dealt in their respective chapters. And here we'll be focusing only on the auditing part. I hope you all have your institute materials with you, and if so, let us get started with the revision lecture. Chapter number 6, Auditing of Information System. Why should we be auditing the information system? Because we are relying more and more on the technology these days, and it has also got so many pitfalls. To come over it and to protect our data, we need to audit the information system in an organization. So we are looking at in detail here. Need for audit of information system. What does it need? One is the organizational cost of data loss. Next is the cost of incorrect decision making. Next, cost of computer abuse. Next, value of computer hardware, software, and personnel. Then, high cost of computer error. Then, maintenance of privacy. Next comes control evolution of computer use. Let us look at it one by one. Cost of data loss. We all know that data is critical for for an organization. So it has to be protected. And if there's going to be a data loss, it is going to cost a lot for the organization. And then cost of incorrect decision making. And incorrect decision making is going to render so many things obsolete, and it has to be done with great care. Cost of computer abuse, abuse in the form of unauthorized access to the sensitive data can also lead to restriction of assets. Next is the value of hardware and software and personnel. They are the critical resources in an organization, and any damage to them is going to impact the credibility of an organization. So hardware, software, and personnel are the critical resources, and any damage is going to impact the credibility. Next is the high cost of computer error. Yes, if there's going to be one error, it could be repeated again and again. For example, in our invoice, there's going to be 1 rupee of difference, and in every other invoice, that 1 rupee is going to be cumulative, then it's going to lead to lakhs and lakhs of rupees of losses. So high cost of computer error. Error during the data entry or process also. Then maintenance of privacy. Privacy is of high importance these days, and any damage to the privacy is going to result in so many data losses and our credibility as well. Then controlled evaluation of evolution of computer use. Use of technology and reliability of complex computer system cannot be guaranteed. So we cannot guarantee that there is going to be a reliability in the computer system. Hence, we need to audit if it is all in place. That is, the information system control is working properly in an organization, and these are the needs for a proper audit of information system. Next, what is information system auditing? Okay. It's a process of attesting objectives. So audit itself is an attesting objective that focuses on asset safeguarding, data integrity, and management objectives. So attesting objectives, and it focuses on asset safeguarding, data integrity, and management objectives. So let us look at it in detail. Here we have a mnemonic here, which is EIS. Sounds like Executive Information System. No, but here it is EIS. E for effectiveness, E for efficiency, I for integrity, S for safeguarding. So these are the objectives of an information system auditing. What are they? EIS. E for effectiveness, E for efficiency, I for integrity, and S for safeguarding objectives. Okay, let us look at it. Asset safeguarding objectives. So as we all seen, the data are the assets and it has to be protected, and this should be the objective of an information system control. So this information system assets, which are the hardware, software, personnel, and data as well, must be protected. This is the first objective. Next is the data integrity. What does mean by integrity? That there's no, it is correct, complete, and accurate. That is what integrity means. So data integrity. Why it should be integrated? Because only then we can give a correct decision making. And then the system effectiveness. That is the effectiveness of a system is evaluated by looking at it, the characteristics and objectives are met or not. Effectiveness, we look at it by measuring the characteristics and objectives, and system efficiency objectives. So how do we measure the efficiency? By the efficient utilization of resources and their proper mix. So these are the objectives of information system auditing. What is this? What are the objectives of information system auditing? It is EIS. E for effectiveness, E for efficiency, I for integrity, and S for safeguarding of assets. Next, we have all been using computer in all walks of our life, and it has also impacted the way we audit. And so how did it change the way we audit? Mainly in the two stages, which is evidence collection and evidence evaluation. So how we collect the evidence and how it's going to be available in our hand, and evaluation, how we are going to evaluate and produce the reports. So first, for the collection, evidence collection, we are going to play with some mnemonics here. So for evidence collection, the mnemonic is dosa idli. So let us remember it this way. It is very easy. So for evidence collection, collecting dosa idli, let's remember it that way. So D for document input, O for output, S for storage, A for audit trial, AD for evidence, LE for legal issues. So evidence collection, the following aspects are impacted. One is the document input. So absence of input documents. We all know in a computerized environment, many a time the invoices and everything is generated in the electronic form, or we can say in the form of electronic data interchange. So there is very less paperwork and there is absence of input documents. So this is for the first mnemonic, which is document input. So absence of input document, it is all mostly in the form of electronic data, because we use electronic data interchange these days often, and there's very less paperwork. Next is output. Okay. Lack of availability of printed output. Just like we don't have the paper inputs in the paper form, the outputs are also paperless. So access the electronic data retained on the client's computer. That is how we look into the output. We are not printing the records. We are directly accessing the electronic data retained on the client's computer. Next one is storage, data retention and storage. So if there's going to be a restriction on the storage capacity, there is going to be a restriction on the amount of data which can be processed as well. So if there's going to be a limitation on our storage capacity, we cannot process sufficient amount of data as well. Okay, next one is the audit trail. We all know that an audit trail is the sequence how we can follow each transaction one by one. And in a computerized environment, that is a lack of audit trail or non-availability of audit trail, or it's available only for a very short time. So due to this absence of audit trail or the non-availability of audit trail or available only for a short time, it is going to make the auditor's job very difficult, and we'll have to apply furthermore auditing around the computer. We have auditing around the computer, auditing through the computer. So we'll have to adopt more of the auditing around the computer approach here. So this is for the audit trail. And next one is evidence, audit evidence. And here we say certain transactions may be generated automatically by the computer. So for example, the calculation of depreciation, it is not done by us, it is generated automatically by the computer. And if there's going to be some mistake, it has to be got back again from a final report and then it has to be corrected. Then the legal issues. So I hope you all seen the movie Endiran, and there comes a part when the robo itself presents as an evidence, and it says I am a machine and I can also be presented as an evidence. So this is a legal issue. Invisibility of evidence provided by the client's computer system. So can these reports generated from the computer, can the data held by the computer be produced as a legal evidence? This is seen in detail in chapter number 7 as well. So these are the aspects which are relating to the changes in evidence collection. What is the changes in evidence collection? It is those are D for document input, O for output, S for storage, A for audit trail, E for evidence, L for legal issues. So evidence collection. What comes next? Evidence evaluation. So how is it going to impact the way we are going to analyze the evidences? One is the system generated transactions. Next is the automated transaction processing system. Next is the systemic error. The mnemonic here is SAS, SAS, okay? We'll look at it one by one. System generated transactions. So the computer in by themselves, they have the ability to initiate, approve, and also record a financial transaction. And this is a key part where it has to be audited. So they have the ability to initiate, approve, and record the financial transactions as well. Next is the automation of transaction processing system. A classic example here is the just-in-time inventory stock system, where a purchase requisition will be generated automatically when the stock falls below a particular level. So automated transaction processing system we have. And then is a systemic error. What is a systemic error? They are designed to carry out the processing on a consistent basis. So invariably, the computers are going to produce the same output, and only if there's going to be an error, that output is going to differ. So if there's going to be no issue and it's going to be smooth, the output is going to be constant for all. These are the changes related to evidence evaluation. What is this? SAS is for system generated transaction, that is they initiate, approve, and record the transactions. Then automated transaction processing system, which is JIT, and systemic error, that is they produce the same output invariably. Okay, next is a responsibility for controls. Who has the responsibility for control? Responsibility for auditing lies with the auditor, but the responsibility for control and establishing and maintaining lies with the management. Let us read it. Management is responsible for establishing, maintaining control to achieve the objectives of effectiveness, efficiency, and reliable information system. This we have seen it in the objectives. But moving on to the next. Here we have the skill set required by an information system auditor. What are the skill set or knowledge which he should be possessing to audit a computer system and information system? First is a sound knowledge of the business. He should have the knowledge of the business, and then he should know about the risk and control. Then he should know about the IT strategies, technical and manual controls, and then the professional standards. And then he himself must be possessing the technical qualification, which comes first. So firstly, to be appointed as an information system auditor, he has to possess the technical qualification and certification. Next, he must have a sound knowledge on the business operations. So what comes next after the knowledge of the business is the risk and control related to the business, and then the IT strategies, plans, and procedures. Then technical and manual controls, and then the higher authority, which is the professional standards. These are the skill sets which are required by an information system auditor. Okay, he has got the required skill. And then what are the functions that is going to be performed by the information system auditor? So here we have a mnemonic that which is taken from the question itself, functions of information system auditor. So the mnemonic here is FIS resources. Functions of information system auditor, FIS resources. F for fraud, I for IT strategies, and S for security. R, that is resources. So firstly, the Funkis function is to look into the IT related frauds. Then for an ineffective IT strategies, he will have to look into the strategies, and if they are going to be ineffective, he'll have to communicate it to the manager and get it corrected. And then is the security. He will have to see if there is no proper information security control, that is the protection by way of passwords, or maybe like some physical controls, logical controls. He'll have to look at it everything, and that is for the security aspect. And then for resources, he will have to check if there is inefficient use of resources or poor governance, and there's a improper resource mix. So firstly, he'll have to look into the fraud aspect, and next he'll have to check for the inefficient IT strategies, policies, or procedures, and next he'll have to check the IT security and see if it is enough, and then he'll have to see if the resources are properly used and there is no poor governance. Okay, these are the functions. So what are the categories of information system audit? What are the categories? We have 5 categories. It is very easy to remember those. Here we have the categories of information system audit. So getting the answer from the question here itself. So first is the information processing facility. So for information, we have the information processing facility. And next for system, we have system development and system application. So who is going to be responsible for all this? The management is responsible, and there should be communication. So that is easy to remember that way. So first is for information processing facility. For system, we have system development, system application and control. Next, the management, and then telecommunication. Let us look at it one by one. So for system and application, okay, what is a function? An audit to verify that system and application are appropriate, effective, and controlled. So they are appropriate, effective, and that they are in a controlled environment. This is for system and application. And then the information processing facility, in order to verify that the processing facility is controlled. Why? So that there is a timely, accurate, and efficient processing of applications. Next is the system development. This we'll be seeing in detail in the chapter system development life cycle. The objective of this category is that the system should be developed as per the generally accepted standards. And next is the management of IT and enterprise architecture, to verify that they are in a controlled and efficient environment. And next come telecommunication, intranet and extranet. So what is this? An audit to verify that controls are in place and that the telecommunication lines or the networking are working properly. So these are the categories of information system audit. What are they? For information processing facility, which is that the processing is done in a timely, accurate and efficient manner. Then we have system development, that is the system is developed as per the generally accepted standards. Then we have system and application, that they are working in an appropriate and efficient manner. Then we have the management of IT and enterprise architecture, to prove that they are controlled in an effective environment. Then telecommunication, intranet and extranet, verify that the controls are in place. These are the categories of information system audit. So we have the 5 categories here. Moving on to the next one. What are the steps in an information system audit? And another important question that we get often. First is a scoping, planning, field work, analysis, reporting, and closure. Scoping, planning, fieldwork, analysis, reporting, and closure. So in the step of scoping and pre-audit survey, we will determine which is going to be our areas of focus and which is beyond our area or out of scope. So first one is scoping. So we are going to be checking which is our area of focus and which is out of scope. And next is planning and preparation. Scoping, planning. Planning is audit, work plan or risk control matrix will be broken down in this level. So this will be put forth in this level, which is the audit work plan or the risk control matrix. Next is we all plan it out. It is time to work it out. That comes up field work, where we gather the evidence through interviews or reviewing the documents or observations. So scoping, planning, field work. We have got the evidences. Next is to analyze those evidences by various methods called as SWOT, test and whatnot. Next is the reporting. Reporting to whom? Reporting to the management on the basis of the analysis of the evidences. And then closure. Closure is preparing notes for future audit. So these are the steps in the information system audit. Let us say it again. Scoping, planning, fieldwork, analysis, reporting and closure. Okay. Next is the audit standard and best practices. So the information system auditor needs guidance and a yardstick to measure the 3 E's. What are those 3 E's? Efficiency, economy, and effectiveness. This we have seen in the objectives as well. EIS is object, EIS is objective, and here we have it again: efficiency, economy, and effectiveness. And the next part is where we are dealing with the audit standards and other act which is going to be applicable for them. This is going to be dealt in detail in chapter number 7 as well. So we'll be looking at it there. Okay. Next, performing of information system audit. So how do we perform the information system audit? It is going to determine on the basis of the nature, timing, and extent of the audit procedure. This is so similar to our audit chapter. You all remember NTE, which is nature, timing, and extent. Here's next are the important part for our examination. So how do we validate this audit plan? It can be validated by following these 5 methods. What is that? Asking different personnel the same question. So asking different personnel the same question. Then asking the same question in different ways and at different times. So how are we going to validate our audit is the question here. Asking different personnel the same question. Asking the same question in different ways at different times. And then comparing our checklist to the working papers and comparing our checklist to the observations. Next is conducting mini studies of the critical phases. So these are the steps through which we can validate an information system audit. What are they? Asking the same question to different personnel, asking the same question to the same person in different ways at a different time, then comparing the checklist with the work paper, comparing our checklist with the observations, and conducting mini studies of the critical phases. So these are the validation points which has to be followed. So what is the basic plan? How is the basic plan determined? This is another very common question. It is very easy to answer here. So the plan is determined according to the size of the entity, and after obtaining the knowledge of the business, we'll have to discuss the elements and identify the critical elements, and then we should develop and document the audit plan. Documentation of the audit plan is very important, and we should also be guided by an overall audit plan. So these are the requirements which should be considered in our basic audit plan. Next comes a preliminary review. So we say we should have a knowledge of the business. So what are the steps that the auditor should take before commencing an audit of an information system of a particular organization? So they are the knowledge of the business. Yes. So how and what the economic factors, nature of the business, general exposures, the vendors, their clients, their partners, and the competency level of the top management and the IT setup or the organizational structure. Next is understanding the technology. So first we got to know about the business, and next is understanding the technology. That is, what is the architecture and what is a network and who are their stakeholders, and if they have the knowledge of the advantages and limitations of their technology setup, and finally studying the policies, standards, guidelines and rules also. And next is understanding the internal control system. So we have seen about the technology, but now we are going to focusing on the internal control system to see if it is in place and if it's working effectively and efficiently. Then it's the legal considerations and the audit standards. So you should know about the legal as well as the statutory implications, and you should see if the audit work could be carried as a part of a statutory requirement. Is it a statutory requirement? And if there's any minimum set of control objectives that has to be obtained, and he should also consider the audit standard applicable. Okay, this is for the legal consideration. Next is the risk assessment and materiality part. Risk assessment. So we all seen in chapter number 4 as well. So risk assessment of the critical phases. And this is also determining the nature, timing and extent and the areas of the functions which will be focused by us, and the time and the resources which we are going to be allocating for the audit. So here we are going to be using a mnemonic which is BTS legal assessment. So for the preliminary review, or BTS we can say behind the scenes. So for preliminary review, we are going to look for the mnemonic which is BTS legal assessment. So B for basic knowledge of the business, T for technology, S for system, legal consideration and audit standards, and assessment of what? Risk assessment and materiality. It is very easy to remember and it's a very simple chapter that we are going to be cracking our marks. Next, what are the types of risk? We say risk assessment. Risk assessment, how are we going to classify the risk? So it is divided into 3 parts, which is the inherent risk, control risk, and then detection risk. So inherent risk, what is an inherent risk? It is bought with it, it is inbuilt. So it is related to the basic characteristics of that particular information. So if we say if the information is going to be in a loose sheet of paper, it's going to be either flying away or thought of in waste paper and going to be thrown out. So that is its inherent risk. Okay, next is a control risk. Control risk, that the control in place will not detect or correct on a timely basis. That an information system in an organization, information control in an organization, it by itself may not be having the capability to detect or correct the particular risk. So that is a control risk. What is the detection risk? That the auditor's substantial procedures will not detect an error. This is a fault on the part of the auditor, that the auditor's substantive procedures will not detect an error. This is for the detection risk. So when there's an audit, there are 3 parties. One, we are going to audit the information, one, we are going to audit the system, and one, the auditor himself. Okay, so these are the 3 parties. So each one has one of those limitations. For the information, we have the inherent risk. For the control, we have the control risk. And for the auditor, we have the detection risk. Just giving another thorough read is going to help us a lot. Next, we are going to be moving into the information system audit and audit evidence. Here we'll be quoting SA 230, which is audit documentation, refers to the record of audit procedures performed and the relevant audit evidence obtained and the conclusions reached. So in audit documentation, we are going to record the audit procedure, the evidence, and whatever conclusion, the procedure, the evidence, or conclusion. Okay, we have the inherent limitations of audit. How are we going to overcome? One of the inherent limitation in an audit or information system is that there is no evidence in a paper form. So how are we going to overcome it? by using special audit techniques and by timing our audit in such a way that we can validate it as they occur. That is a, we are mentioning here about the concurrent audit procedure. So because the documents are not available in a physical form, we are going to use the special audit techniques, which we call as the computer assisted audit techniques or CAT. And for the timing, we are going to measure it when they occur. That is the concurrent audit. Next, we are going to moving on to the concurrent or continuous audit. What is a concurrent or a continuous audit? It is real-time online basis. We all know everything is happening in real time. So for every transaction, it is which is happening now, it is going to be updated in the database and is going to be processed, and the output is going to be ready then and there. So in this real-time environment, the auditing will also have to be on a real-time basis rather than accumulating it and doing it at a later stage. So real-time recordings need real-time auditing. Okay, what are the types of audit tools through which we can do this concurrent or a continuous audit? One is snapshot. Next is ITF. Next is SCARF. Next is continuous intermittent simulation. So these are the types of audit tool. First is snapshot. What is a snapshot? Snap taking. I think there's an app called Snapchat. Okay, so this snapshot is going to take a photo of all the transactions, but only at a point where the material processing is going to occur. So snapshot, just like Snapchat, it's going to take a photo of all the transactions, but only where the material processing is going to occur. So snapshots or extended records. So the key points on the material processing occurs and it takes an image of any transaction. So any transaction is going to be clicked, but at the material processing point. And then why these points are used to evaluate the authenticity, accuracy, and completeness. Okay, so the main area to develop or involving the system is to locate. So the main focus is where is that material processing occurring. So where this material processing occurring, where are we going to place that snap? So where is it going to be captured and when the snapshot will be captured? So where is it going to be captured and when it is going to be captured are the key questions that are arising from here. So what is a snapshot technique? So it takes snapshots or perform the help of extended records. So any transaction, but where the material processing occurs. And here the question is where and when the snapshot will be captured and why it is useful for the authenticity, accuracy, and completeness evaluation. Next comes the integrated test facility, ITF. So what word we should come to our mind on hearing ITF is dummy entry. Okay, so this technique involves the creation of a dummy entity in the application system. And so we are going to introduce a dummy entry and we are going to check how it's going to be processed. And then we are going to evaluate, are we getting the desired result for that particular dummy entry which we introduced before. So the key questions here are, what would be the method that is used to enter the dummy entry and removing the effects of the dummy entry from the whole processing system? So these are the key questions. And here also our aim is to verify the authenticity, accuracy, and completeness. So the questions here which arise are, how are we going to enter the test data? Through the method called tagging live transactions. Through the method of tagging, the dummy entry will be entered. Then the other question is, how are we going to remove the effects of the ITF transactions? The application system may be programmed to recognize the ITF transaction. This is how we are going to remove the effects. So they should be programmed to recognize the effects of those dummy transactions. So this is what ITF is all about. So we are going to introduce a dummy entry and check how it's going to be processed. The key questions which arise are, what are the methods that we introduce and how the effects are going to be removed. Next comes a very important part, which is a system control audit review file. This is similar to snapshot, but here the SCARF technique involves an embedded audit software module within the host application system to provide a continuous monitoring of the system's transaction. So we are going to use an embedded audit software in the host application system itself. So there's going to be an audit software in the host system itself, and it is going to be looking at how the processing is taking place and where are these files going to be saved in the SCARF master file. So embedded audit module in the host application itself, and it is going to be saved in the SCARF master file. Okay. Okay. So what are the users and what can we collect using the following SCARF technique? So how are we going to use the SCARF technique? In which areas can this be used? So the mnemonic here is, remember that when you go to a spa, wear a scarf, okay? When you go to a spa, wear a scarf. So for scarf, we need a spa. So S for system exceptions, S for statistical samples, S for snapshots and extended records. You already seen for the snapshot method. So S for system exceptions, S for statistical sample, S for snapshots and extended records. Then P for policy and procedural variances, P for profiling data, P for performance measurements, okay, and A for application system errors. The mnemonic here is, when you go to a spa, wear a scarf. So S for system exceptions, S for statistical sample, S for snapshots and extended records. Then P for policy, P for profiling, P for performance. Then A for application system errors. Let us look at it one by one. Application system errors. So a SCARF audit routines provide an independent check on the quality of system processing. So yes, to check on the quality on the system processing and to verify if there's any error and if the system is modified and well maintained or not. Okay, and next the policy and procedural variance. Organizations have to adhere to the policies and procedures and standards. Yes, and SCAR can be used to check if there's any variance in these policies, procedures and standards. So we have to adhere to the policies and procedures, and with SCAR we are going to see if there's any variance. That's all. And system exceptions. SCAR can be used to monitor different types of applications, system exceptions. For example, salesperson might be given some leeway in the prices they charge to customers. So maybe they are given some flexibility to charge a higher price maybe. So to trap those exceptions, we are going to be using SCAR. And then statistical sample. Some embedded audit routines might be statistical sampling routines. SCAR provides a convenient way of collecting all the sample information together on one file and provides an analytical review tools thereon. So and for through we are going to collect the sampling information and we are going to provide the analytical reviews. And next is snapshot or extended records. Snapshots and extended records can be written into the SCARF file and printed when required. So this is nothing but an exemption or an evolution of the snapshot technique. Then profiling data. So what's the profiling data? Auditors can use embedded audit modules, that is SCARF one, to collect data to build a profile of the user system, that is the name, our roles and responsibilities, the areas of in the DBMS which we are authorized to access and everything. So deviation from this profiles indicate that there may be some errors or irregularities. Suppose say I'm allowed only to enter the data and not modify it at a later stage. So that is my profiling. If it is going to be violated, then it will be reported. Next comes the performance measurement. Auditors can use embedded routines to collect data that is useful for measuring or improving the performance of an application system. So how the application system performs, can it be improved? So this is helpful for performance measurement as well. So these are the areas or the information which will be reviewed by the SCARF system. What are those? SPA, system exception, statistical sample, snapshot or extended records. P for profiling, P for policy, P for performance, A for application system errors. Next comes a continuous and intermittent simulation. This is a variation of SCARF technique and it can be used to trap exemptions whenever we use our DBMS. So this story is such that this is the database reads an application system transaction, that is information is going to be stored in the DBMS and then it goes to the CIS and the CIS will check if there's going to be any discrepancies or not. So was DBMS, then everything from the DBMS goes to the CIS and CIS questions if there's going to be any discrepancies or not. This is a story for CIS. So it is going to trap the exemptions when there is a use of database system. Then the exemptions identified by CIS or written in the exemption file log. Okay. Okay, so the database management system reads an application. So first the database management system reads an application, then it is passed to the CIS. So any information is then passed to CIS. Then the CIS will question if it should be further examined or not. If it has to be examined, it waits for the DBMS to send furthermore information and then the audit is done. And all these exemptions are returned in the exemption log file. This is for CIS. Next one is okay. Here we also have the advantages. The advantage of CIS is that it does not require modification to the application system. Just like our ITF, we're not modifying, or just like our SCARF, we're not introducing any embedded software. So this is an advantage that doesn't require modification. So next, what are the benefits? It reduces the cost, it saves the time, and the quality of audit is also increased. So these are the advantages of CIS. What are the advantages of CAT? Here we have the answer in the question itself. Advantages of CAT or CAT objectives. So what is CAT objectives for the advantages? C for capability, A for auditing, T for training and objectives. So advantages of CAT objectives. So C for capability. What is it? Surprise test capability. So the evidence are collected from the system itself and the auditor gather these without the staff being aware that the evidence are being gathered. So the evidence are gathered from the system itself and I'm going to gathering my evidence and the employee is not going to know that I'm auditing it. So there is a surprise test capability. Next is auditing. What is that? Timely, comprehensive, and detailed auditing is that evidence is available in a timely and comprehensive manner, and we can do a very detailed auditing. Next is training. Training for new users. Using the integration test facilities, new users can submit data and obtain feedback on any mistake they make via the system error report. So it also serves as a learning tool or a training tool for new users and objectives. That is the information system staff on meeting of objectives. It helps them to meet the objectives. Continuous audit techniques provides the information to system staff regarding the test vehicle to be used, and it helps them to meet the objectives of asset safeguarding, data integration, effectiveness and efficiency, economy, whatnot. Okay, these are the advantages of CAT technique. What are advantages of CAT technique? CAT objectives. So C for surprise test capability, A for auditing, that is detailed auditing, T for training for new users, and objectives is that information to system staff on meeting the objectives. We have the objectives. What are disadvantages or limitations? That is the SAT-SAY. So the disadvantages of SAT-SAY is for stability. That is, or the CAT techniques are going to be less effective if they are not unless they are implemented in the application system that is relatively stable. So the application system has to be stable first. Only then we can introduce the CAT system there. So the stability of the application system is going to affect our CAT techniques. Next is our audit trail. We all know there is going to be no audit trail or less audit trail, or the audit trail is going to be existing only for a limited time. So continuous audit techniques are likely to be used when the audit trail is less visible and cost of errors and irregularities are high. So CAT techniques will be used when the audit trail is less or the cost of errors or irregularities are high. This is yet another disadvantage. Next is development. So the auditor, many a times he is not associated with the development of the application system, let alone the development of CAT techniques. Next is support. Support of top management is of utmost importance for any information system element happening in an organization. We have already seen it in the DSS as well. So support of top management is of high importance. And then experience. The experience of the auditor is going to impact the working of the CAT techniques. So these are the disadvantages or limitations of CAT system. What is the disadvantages? SAT is what? Stability of the application system is going to impact the capability of the CAT system. Next is the audit trail. Audit trail is not available many times, and or it's available only for less time, and the cost of errors and irregularities are also high here. And next is development. That is the auditor many times is not associated with it when there is a development in the information system or some software. And then support of top management is of utmost importance. If there is no support, then anything cannot move an inch. Then is the experiences. The auditor's experience in the technical qualification is going to impact the method of auditing as well. Next comes the point which I have been mentioning always. Okay, before that, we'll look at audit hooks. What is an audit hook? Hook is going to flag the suspicious transactions. Audit hooks are the audit routines that flag the suspicious transactions. Okay, so the internal audit department will investigate those tagged records. So only those tagged records or the flagged suspicious transactions will be investigated. So when audit hooks are employed, auditors can be informed of questionable transactions. So we know there's going to be if something is hooked, we'll know, okay, something questionable has occurred. So it serves as a notification. So it provides a real-time notification on the auditor's terminal. Okay, I'm having some issues with this. Let me quickly just, okay. Okay, next is the audit trail. We are always mentioned of the audit trail being present or being present only for a limited time. So what is an audit trail? Audit trail says who did what and where. Okay, audit trail says who did what and where. So audit trails or logs that can be designed to record the activity of a system. So it records the activity of a system and you can know who did what, when, and where. Okay, so it serves as important detective control. It is an important detective control. This is a very important MCQ question which comes often. Okay. Next is, what are the objectives of this audit trail? For the objectives of audit trail, the mnemonic which we use is DRT. What is DRT? Detecting unauthorized access, reconstruction of events, and promoting personal accountability. So the objectives of audit trail are DRP. What is DRP? Detecting unauthorized access, facilitating reconstruction of events, and promoting personal accountability. So unauthorized access. So how does it help? What does it do? It is used to report the changes in the system performance whenever there is an unauthorized access and whenever there something has been changed without any proper authority. This will be reported. Reconstruction of events. So whenever steps will be taken to lead to steps. Oh, sorry. Okay, so we have a record of changes, record of all the changes. So whenever there's going to be some disaster, whenever there's going to be some elements that are missing, so we can always go back to all the trials that we have made and we can always restructure it from the basic. So this is restructuring of events because we are maintaining a record of all changes, just like a differential backup. So we have all the changes that are made. So it is very easy for us to go back to the original. And then is a personal accountability. That is, they can be used to monitor the user activity, and then this serves as a preventive control. So these are the objectives of audit trail. What are the objectives of audit trail? DRT. What is D? Detecting unauthorized access, facilitating reconstruction of events, and then P, personal accountability, promoting personal accountability. These are for the objectives of audit trail. And then what is the role of information system auditor in physical access control? And this part is very well dealt in our chapter 3 and 7. So I'm going to be leaving out this part and we'll be dealing with later. And straight away we are moving on to page number 6.35, and that we'll be seeing about the various levels in an organization. Okay, so here we have it now. What are the various levels? Operational level, tactical level, strategic level. Operational level, we have all seen it in chapters before. So they are the basic level. So here they are going to be dealing only with the user access decisions. That is the password control, profiling, which are seen before. So this level is going to be dealing with only the user access decision. Next is the tactical level. Tactical level, the mnemonic is ATM. So for administration and management is the role of the tactical level. Next is the strategic level. They are going to be dealing with the standards, policies, guidelines, rules, and regulations. Let us look at it one by one. For the operational level, they are going to be dealing with the user accounts and access rights. So they are going to be dealing with the user accounts and access rights. And next, for the password control, say whenever we try to set up a new password, is asked is it strong enough? Oh no, you're using an old password which you used before. So this is for the password control. So first is a user account or access right, and next is a password control. Next is segregation of duties. So if the person who is going to be entering is the one who is going to be editing or preparing the final report, there is going to be a lot of fraud that could happen. So segregation of duties must be there, and this is what is explained here very well. The record keeper and the cashier example. Okay, so this is for the operational level. What are those? So here we have user accounts and access right, password controls, segregation of duties. Next, for the tactical level. Here, the mnemonic which we use is administration and management. So the activities that they are going to be performing is updation to user profile. At the next step, here they are creating, that they are updating, and then management, ATM, administration and management. So management, managing what? Assessing the risk, doing the awareness program, doing the self-assessment, reviewing, monitoring. So these are the items which are done in the management process. So assessing risk, awareness, self-assessment, reviewing, monitoring. Next is interface security. This relates to application interface with each application. We are all going to be having multiple applications in an organization. So it is important to understand how one information is going to be flowing from one application to the other. That is the interface security. So the auditor needs to understand that data flows to and from the application. and the interface data is important. Here we are also dealing with the unencrypted and unencryption, that is securing the data before it is going to be sent to another application. And next, the audit logging and monitoring. Regular monitoring of audit logs is important. Logging is that maintaining a record of whatever is done and when. So these are the activities at the tactical level. So one is the updation of user profile. So user profile, user accounts and access right will be determined in the operation level 3. The updation will be done in the next level. So what is ATM? Administration management. So managing what? Risk awareness, self-assessment, reviewing and monitoring. And next, the interface security. So we all know the middle level is the functional level. So imagine there's going to be so many functions, sales, purchase, and HR and whatnot. So the information is going to be flowing from one functional area to the other. So for that, we need the interface security. And next is the audit logging and monitoring. And next comes the strategic level. As we have already seen, they are the top management, and they take action in the form of informing the standards, policies, guidelines, and reporting. So with this, it brings us to the end of chapter 6. This chapter is relatively easy, and it is mainly based on chapter 3 and 7. And these areas we are going to be dealing with detail in that in order to avoid a redundancy. So thank you, and see you all again later.